you, besides all these players, how did you end with Allan Holdsworth? And
Oh, wow.
what was your experience like with him? Me being a guitarist, I spoke the other day with Gary Husband, like
Yeah,
this interview, and what are your thoughts on Allan and your meeting him? How did that happen?
that was incredible. And I was a big fan, obviously, of his music and his playing.
Yeah.
And especially two rhythm sections. I'm sorry about that. I
Oh,
just
no.
dropped something. There's two rhythm sections that I really, really loved. I mean, I loved all the recordings, but there are two rhythm sections that I absolutely loved, and that was Jimmy Johnson and Chad Wackerman.
Yeah.
And so I used to listen to all those records. They did most of the recordings, but there was a really nice record that I absolutely loved, and that had a bass player that I spent a little time with, and a drummer that I do a lot of work with, Gary Novak.
Oh, yeah.
And the bass player was Dave Carpenter.
Oh, 16 Men of Tain. I love that record. Yeah.
Love the record.
What's
It's
the
an
first
incredible
tune?
record.
0274. That's, oh man, that's.
So I was listening to all that, and and then all of a sudden, here's the real crazy thing. Um, in the early '70s, I was living in San Francisco, um, and then I would every once in a while come home and like visit with my mom and dad and my friends. And then one time I came home and a friend of mine said, "Hey, um, this guy Allan Holdsworth is playing." No, he didn't say that. He said this guy Tony Williams is playing
Ooh.
at a club near your house. I said, "Oh, you mean there was a place in Roslyn, New York called My Father's Place?" That was the name of the club. And they had international groups coming in all the time. And I saw a lot of bands there. So Tony Williams, I was a big fan of. Um, we didn't know what it was, but it said Tony Williams Lifetime. So we said, let's go check it out. So we got tickets, we went in, and it was this band with Allan Holdsworth, Alan Pasqua on
Oh, yeah.
keyboards, and a really great bass player named Tony Newton. And they were playing music from a record called Believe It, which wasn't even out yet. It hadn't even been released. And we were just like checking these guys out, going, "This is incredible. It's like a rock band, but beyond that. And I never heard a guitar player sound like
Yeah.
Allan Holdsworth. So I was just blown away by him. And then later I got into all his music and stuff. And I actually met him a couple of times, like, these things called
Yeah.
NAM
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one in Anaheim here in California. So a couple of times when I was down there working, doing something for some manufacturer, I would run into Allan Holdsworth and people would introduce us, and it was great. But he was playing with Jimmy Johnson and Chad Wackerman. I was doing Yellow Jackets and all this other stuff. So all of a sudden, I think it was around 2002, I got a phone call from Alan Pasqua, who I knew. I knew Alan and done a bunch of things with him. And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" He said, "Well, I'm supposed to go out on tour with Allan Holdsworth, a tribute to Tony Williams and the
Mm.
Tony Williams Lifetime. And the bass player doesn't feel good and he's canceling." And that was Alfonso Johnson. And Alan Pasqua said, "Would you be willing to do this tour?" And I went, "Wow, okay. Well, what are the dates?" And he gave me the dates, and I looked, and I was able to move a few things around, and I did the tour.
Wow.
And on that tour, somewhere in the middle of that tour, we decided to do a DVD, which was up in Oakland, California, at Yoshi's,
Yeah.
a club called Yoshi's. So that came that came out pretty good. Although I was just like learning the music at that time, but at the same time, it was a pretty good performance. And the company that put the DVD out did a really good job with the filming and the recording and all that. And so that was it. I ended up playing in that quartet for a couple of years.
Mm.
And then after that, Allan liked playing with me, and we liked each other as people. And he just said, "Do you want to do some trio gigs with me?" And I said, "I'd love to." So I ended up doing a few trio things with Chad Wackerman, but the bulk of the trio stuff that I did was with Virgil Donati.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
wow. I love Virgil. Yeah. Oh man,
I
that must
did.
have been heavy. Whew.
I did. Yeah, it was unbelievable. So I ended up, working with Virgil on other things as well. And he's incredible.
He's a monster. Yeah.
So I probably did, I don't know, 80 or 90 shows, maybe more, maybe 100 shows with Virgil. Um, I probably did, a month or so of gigs with Chad and some other little special things that we did. I think Chad had something with a cymbal company at a NAMM show, and he asked me and Allan to do it with him. So we did.
Mm.
And then I ended up, one of the last things I did was a really nice tour with Gary Husband.
Yeah, I saw that on
Um,
YouTube. That's incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Korea, but we did all of East Coast and Chicago, some other gigs in the Midwest, and then we went to Japan and we went to Korea,
Mm.
and it was a place north of Seoul. I can't even pronounce the name, but it was an hour plus north of there in a really big open field, and it was
Wow.
a festival called Jerusalem. Uh, and so that was one of the last. I did some more gigs with Allan and Virgil after that. Somewhere in there, I even did like a one show, I think, with Gary Novak and
Really?
Alan
Oh, wow.
Pasqua.
Oh,
Yeah, because I
wow.
think Chad, we were doing this
Beautiful.
one show here in LA, and Chad was unavailable, so we got Gary Novak to do it. So
That's
that was
nice.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you guys ever talk about music? Like how to play those tunes, or like how did you learn the music? Because I know I've spoken with Steve Hunt, the piano player who played with Allan, and he said like, there were no lead sheets in
There's no
advance.
charts.
Yeah. How did that work?
Well, I used to learn a lot of music just by ear, just memorizing stuff. So that wasn't a far-fetched way of learning the music, but it's very complex and there's
Like,
a lot going on. So it took me some time to really feel fully comfortable with the music. But I got some cheat sheets from Jimmy Johnson.
okay.
He had some cheat sheets that helped me with at least some of the harmony.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because even like the bar lines and the meter and stuff, none of that was written out. So you had to kind of figure out if there was
Okay.
like a bar of 7 and then 2 bars of 5 and then back to 4/4 and then a bar of 9. It's like all over the place. But even with the Yellow Jackets, I had a lot of experience with odd meter music. So I was fairly comfortable with understanding what the music was. It was just a matter of getting comfortable with actually playing
Yeah.
the parts and learning how to improvise over some of this stuff, to make it, all
Organic.
flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, make it organic. Yeah. Yeah.